grab a cozy drink, maybe even a glass of wine, and come join us at the soon-to-be-named book club. As usual, I am Ian, your hostess with the mostest. We'd like to welcome back Book Club Mom, and Heart Illustrations is joining us again. Yay! We're missing Decal this week for work stuff. So sad she misses this section because this was crazy.
Yeah, I'd be interested to hear what she thinks about this section.
I know. Maybe next week.
Yeah, maybe next week.
Maybe next week. I mean, we went on our own little hiatus, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, we are reading the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. I think now we're a little bit over halfway through. So that's exciting. Yeah. We're just over halfway through. So that's exciting.
I think we're more 3/4 of the way through.
Yeah, we're close to 3/4. I think it ends. I'm looking. It ends close to page 400, if not page 100, and we're at 267. So we just passed the halfway mark. This section.
Fair enough. Yeah. I guess 3/4 is probably just past halfway.
Yeah. Math.
Not good at it.
Let me make sure this one is working. Okay, it is working. Cool. Thank you. So I don't think I'm forgetting anything like usually I do. In one sentence or less, how would you describe this section?
Well, first of all, we start 3 years later. I think that's, to me, says it all, right?
Right.
I'm going to say frustrating, and it made me want to pull what was left of my hair out. I finished reading it like maybe 10 minutes before we started. And I was really nervous I wasn't going to finish it because I was having such a hard time getting through it. And I don't know if maybe I don't remember where we stopped off last week or if maybe I was a little behind, but I swear every chapter this week just made me so angry. And I kept thinking it was going to get better and like I wouldn't be so angry. So I like loved it and hated it at the same time.
Yeah, not this section. I think our next section will get something we actually love instead of keep hating. I think for my sentence or less, I think I'm just going to stick with the consistent theme of definitely last time we met, I'm pretty sure. I'm just going to go with men are trash. Oh my gosh.
I'm so angry.
So angry. I'm like, wow. Okay, I see what's going on. So just jumping right into it. So we start. So we get a little bit of a time jump in this section. So we end off like everything's hyped up, like where we left off. Everything's like, oh, we've got a plan. We're gonna get James Harris. Like it's gonna be great. We all had our lovely predictions of what the 3-year jump was going to be. I don't know if anyone guessed this or could have guessed what happens.
Nope.
Definitely not. That was all insane. Each chapter. Every chapter. I was like, what is going on?
Right. These women all like reverted into their shells.
Because we started off on chapter 21, right? That was when we started.
We started on chapter 20 this week.
20. Okay, yes. So, okay.
Or this section, I should say.
Yeah, this section, yeah.
Yeah, so we left off right when the book club was all for Patricia's plan. And it was like getting
not just that, but they were all like, they all believed in it. And they all believed that James Harris was involved in, doing whatever it was he was doing. I mean, obviously Patty didn't tell him that she thought he was a vampire, but still, they all believed he had something to do with it. And then
Right. And then the next 3 chapters happen.
Yep.
and then the next 7 chapters happen.
Well, yeah, you're right. The next 7 chapters happen. That's fair.
Right.
So we're all where we start this week. We get into their book club. They're getting ready for everyone to come. The police and I know his name is Leland. Who is his? Is it Mary Ellen's husband? Oh, I forgot. The person who had the detective numbers. He was supposed to show up with the detectives.
I think his name is Ed, but I don't remember who he's married to.
Oh, yeah, it was Ed. Yeah, I don't remember who he's married to either. I think it was, if I had to guess, it's Mary Ellen. But, so we're waiting for Ed and the 2 detectives that Ed said would come. And it's a whole hustle and bustle, everyone getting, they were getting water ready and just, their normal hostess stuff, which I thought was, same. I would do the exact same thing. And then we hit on a little, I think it was only a blurb in this section, but it was talking about how much money everyone was putting into Gracious K. Mm-hmm. And we were missing, in that little blurb, we were missing the main figure of it all. But I was like, this has to come back into play if she's mentioning it right before everything, like the police are about to come. And so when finally doors start slamming, cars start entering the driveways and streets, we see that there are no detectives, just Carter. Oh, so close to redemption, so far away now.
Right.
I don't know if he is ever gonna be close to redemption or ever was after reading this section of chapters, because
no redemption arc for Carter.
Right, Carter.
And then so we end that chapter with Carter stepping out. So we're like, oh great, something stupid's gonna happen now. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, something stupid does happen. So all of their husbands are out now of the. Oh, that's right. Leland is Slick's husband, I think. Now that I think about it.
Yes.
Yes. So they all get out of their cars. They're all there, and no detectives still. And so now you've got all their husbands coming into their book club. They, basically figure out real quick, and also confirming that there are no detectives coming. And then through their whole conversation, it's revealed that James Harris is also a huge investor in Gracious K. And they decided
remind me, what's Gracious K again? Because I don't remember, and I was too lazy to look for.
That's fine. Gracious K is their real estate development. So they probably have a new suburban neighborhood that they're building, and that's what Gracious K is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Same page.
So, right. I think it was supposed to be a gated community, and is it Leland who's behind it? He's the realtor, or he's the one putting the deal together?
Yeah.
So he's gotten all of the book club husbands and James Harris to back Gracious K. So now they're all tied together in this real estate deal.
Mm-hmm. And they're all tied together through money.
That's
which
correct.
is why they all showed up and were like, no, James Harris is a great guy.
Right. Yep. They said they didn't want to be embarrassed by their wives and the stories about James Harris.
Yeah. And then so it's revealed within that they also talked to James Harris before they even thought about going to the detectives. And I was like,
or even thought about talking to their wives.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was like, this is some weird little overhaul that you guys would never get away with.
Well, it tells you again how the men again didn't value their wives' opinions. It's just terrible. And this
Not
was
even their
19,
opinions, but didn't even
1993.
value their wives at all.
Right, exactly. Hmm. Sad.
Right. And so yeah, so then of course in the whole slew of things, I do remember that it's revealed that Slick is not part of a Bible
Yes,
study group.
right.
And
Right.
so
My husband
that's
loves that.
also just blown out of proportions or blown out of the water. I'm like, great. I'm like, this is just going downhill fast. And so that whole interaction between just Carter and
So
Patricia
patronizing.
was so, yeah, it was just gross. I was like, I would literally murder someone if they talked to me like that.
Mm-hmm.
My
Especially
jaw
my
was on the
partner.
floor.
Right. I'm like, what?
Well, again, so remind everyone what happens. So they're at book club. Their husbands come in and basically force them to apologize to James Harris's face because he shows up at book club.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was getting to that. But I was more
Mhm.
talking, I was more referring to just how Carter was like, oh, we'll hear you out before James Harris even showed up. And it
Mhm.
was just so like Patricia like was freaking out, but then she had it down. She had her whole spew that like worked and it was great. And then they just did not listen to her. It
Mhm.
was
Well,
like,
no, and that's what was like so made me so angry was it's like, no, you were never gonna hear her out.
right,
You already planned to have James Harris come by and
right.
you
After,
complain about being humiliated by your wives, yet you just all stood there and humiliated
Right.
your wives.
Mhm.
Like you're not the ones who are ever going to be humiliated. Like you stood there and you demeaned your wives and humiliated them by bringing this man who they clearly did not trust and were not comfortable around for whatever reason, brought this man into the house and forced them all to apologize to him. Like that, oh God, oh, it just makes me so mad.
yeah.
Mhm.
That reveal of Carter being like, well, we brought James Harris here. I was like, dead to me. I was like, what?
Mhm.
I was like, this is not something you just spring on someone. Like,
Mhm.
No.
what? What were you thinking? And so, of course, there's the whole slew of apology. Grace starts off, and it's just uncomfortable, honestly. And
Yeah.
then, of course, the men suggest, oh, James Harris should be part of book club now. And of course, he's like, I'd love to come back. I'm like,
I bet
what
you
is going
would.
on?
Mhm.
So yeah, that whole chapter was just uncomfy. I was like, geez.
And it just keeps getting worse.
Right.
Like props to this author because I really have enjoyed reading this book like
Mhm.
this whole time, but I feel like shit hit the fan this time. Like stuff got
Mhm.
real and like there was a lot more than just like a book club's guide to slaying vampires in this section. Like I feel like the author just really did a good job of getting you really into the story. And then this whole section that we read was just like a bomb of like just information and just the interactions he wrote between all the characters just make your skin crawl. And like, yeah, I was very invested.
Yeah. No, you were definitely on edge, just where everything was going. That's for sure.
Hmm.
And so the next chapter is kind of like the aftermath of it all. Of course, Patricia's just kind of like, I was just completely blindsided by my husband. What is going on? That
My husband, who doesn't respect me,
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely does not.
right. I had something and I lost it, but that's okay. Um, so yeah, so this blowback. Oh, the it was mentioned in earlier chapters and sections, but basically, like Patricia was just like, "Oh, like read my mind, like you know what I'm thinking," and then Carter does the exact opposite. This was completely that tenfold.
Mhm.
I'm like, you don't have that power. Sorry, Patricia. I really wanted it for you, but so then in the next chapter, there's the whole push of, helping Destiny Taylor and Carter just kind of blowing it off, and it's a whole thing. And then of course we find out that she ended up killing herself, and Patricia's just kind of like, what?
And
I'm
why
like,
does no one else care about this?
right. And I couldn't even believe that conversation either. I was like, you guys care way too much about your status, like in your realms. I'm like, what? I'm like, there's a point where you just have to be like, yeah, this matters more. Like,
It doesn't matter if it's not your kids, it's still kids like in your area.
right. And so then we get another uncomfy conversation when Carter offers her a like anti-anxiety med, I'm assuming. I forgot. Was it Prozac?
Prozac, yeah.
Yeah. Where she
I think
offered.
offers is a very generous way to describe it.
Yep.
What would you say?
I think forced. And basically like take this or else kind of thing.
Yeah,
Like,
he gave her an ultimatum.
yeah.
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, I think it was more. See, Carter is a little bit more passive than that. I think it was more of like a manipulated ultimatum. Like you knew it was, but he definitely pulled the like psychiatrist deal where it was like, you have your own free will, but
you
Mhm.
don't.
but you don't.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Bah. Bah. That's what the comment is.
Honestly, when I was just reading that point, at that point, I was like, I would really like for Patty to just leave and like
I
see how
know.
well Carter does trying to run the household on his own. Because obviously he doesn't think that that's a big deal and doesn't think
Yeah.
that what Patty does is important. And so I was just ready for her to just be like, fine, I'm done. Like I'm leaving. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And she really did kind of do that, which it's like, I was not surprised. I don't know if you want to go into that, Ian.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just
Go for it.
summary of the chapter, but basically, by the end of the chapter, Patty just decides to take all of the pills, and I mean, sorry, I forgot what I was going to say.
Yeah, so right. So she basically OD'd and we get this little blackout moment of like, oh, what exactly happened, which of course is revealed in the final chapter of that I forgot what the book was called. Of
Isn't it called Psycho?
I think it was Psycho, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually I have it outlined. Right, so we get the last of that Psycho section. But so before that though, which I think leads to the importance of her relationships with the book club after all of this,
Yes.
is that she called the book club after Carter offered her the Prozac, and basically Grace completely ignored all of the calls. Kitty was basically too busy. The other Mary Ellen also didn't want to talk. And then Slick believed her, but was like, we have to take care of our own stuff at this point. Like, there's no wiggle room to worry about James Harris. And and then she finally just storms over to Grace's house and finds that Grace is in her own, I don't even know, own domestic issues.
Oh yeah, that makes your blood boil.
Yeah, that was,
Well, because I could even see that was problematic in the second chapter that we read in this section.
Yeah.
When Grace's husband was like, you're going to disagree with me. You're going to argue with me in public. And I was like, oh, that man needs to be taken away. Like, and so as soon as like Patty basically forced herself into Grace's house and saw Grace, I was like, oh yeah, I know what we're dealing with here. And this makes me really mad.
yeah, that was I just mm, the the crap that they put up with. I was like, man.
Mm.
I was like, I guess
Literally from all of their husbands. All
right.
of their husbands suck.
Mhm.
Definitely some power trip crap going on, and I'm like, you better watch out. I'm like,
And I don't know if you guys
Exactly.
read this the same way, but I don't think Grace broke her wedding china. I think that her husband did because
oh
I
yeah,
think
Right.
like it's alluded that they probably got home and then got into a fight and her husband broke all of their wedding china and then hit his wife like it was no big deal. And
yeah,
Grace is all like, I just hate the way that like the men in this world of this book just like make their wives think that they're crazy and like demean their wives and are like embarrass their wives and don't trust their wives or listen to their wives.
Mhm.
The
me too.
author does such a good job
Right.
painting
Yeah.
that picture because it feels so real.
Right.
Oh, it does. It feels completely real, and I'm like reading like even in that situation, I'm like, how is he gonna write what Patricia does? Because I honestly couldn't even tell you what I would do. I'd probably end up
Yeah.
go after the freaking
Mhm.
guy and kill him. Like what the hell?
Yeah.
Ugh. That was all of it infuriating for sure.
Infuriating. That's a good word for this section.
Yeah, it is. That's the second sentence or less. Infuriating.
Mhm.
So yeah, so the last chapter before we jump 3 years, Patricia wakes up in a psych ward. Um, and then that whole thing. Oh my God.
Mhm.
I'm with
That whole
Patty.
right.
Carter
Carter
is just
never will ever
such
be forgiven.
right. Yeah, no. He won't and he shouldn't.
No.
Just like she said.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically nothing, ironically, for the psychiatrist, he does nothing wrong.
Yeah,
And
he
he's
can do no
so,
wrong. Oh my gosh, it made me so mad. It made me so mad in that section when she woke up in the mental hospital when he was like, your actions affect other people. The whole world doesn't need to revolve like the whole
ugh,
world doesn't revolve around you, Patricia. Like
yeah,
all because okay, here's
Yeah.
the thing. Patricia taking all of those pills to me obviously wasn't a suicide attempt. She
Right.
just was sick of Carter. She was sick, like she'd just been in the room with Corey, and Corey was like, "Oh, Dad said you're in a phase." And it's like the way that he is feeding their children information and like making their children think that their mom is crazy. Like I feel like that was just the last straw for her. And she was like, I just need a break. I need out. Oh, he wants me to take these pills. Cool, fine. I'll take these pills. So I don't think that she was actually trying to attempt suicide. I think she
no,
was just like
yeah,
frustrated in the moment and really was just like, I'm sick of you. Fine, I'll take your stupid pills. And like, obviously, was so caught up in her emotions that she didn't really realize what she was doing. But just the way that Carter like manipulates her and just the things that he says to her, it's like you obviously don't realize how much she does for you and your family, and then you're gonna stand there and tell her that she needs to think of more than just herself. Like that is not, even if it was like a suicide attempt, that is not how, that you should never tell someone in that position like, oh, well, it's your fault I didn't get my promotion. Like, you guys are my whole world and you went and did that. Like, I hope you made a mistake. And like saying that, like, shit to make her feel bad. Oh, God. And then all of the stuff with the kids, he like brings the kids in. And
Mm.
obviously, like, it was so hard for me to read that because their kids are in such a tough position because, like, yeah, their mom is distressed, but she's distressed for reasons because she's not getting any support. And like, it was awful that Blue had to find his mom, but just the way that Carter just stands in a hospital room and just lets her kids like shout at her and ignore her and treat her terribly and
Mhm.
then make the kids leave the room and be like, you caused this. You caused
Right.
this. This is your fault. Like, there is a fate worse than death out there for Carter, and I hope he gets it. That is
Mm.
Yeah, no, that whole it was just so manipulating. I'm like, this is oof. I'm like, this is
just
bad.
terrible.
Yeah.
And it made me mad too. He said something else where he was like, my wife would have never done that. Like, the
Mhm.
wife I married would have never done that, and said something else like that. And it's or it was like that wasn't in her character. And it's like, Carter, people change. People go through really traumatic events. People go through really tough things in their lives, and that puts strain on them. And when you don't believe or support your wife, obviously she's going to have some type of break. And it's just like, he's just so stupid.
Yes. To all of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, after reading that, I was like, I don't even know how 3 years later they're gonna be able to manage. I'm like, Patricia, I don't know what she's gonna do. I'm like, and what she ended up doing, I was like, I wouldn't have done that. I was like, I couldn't be able to do that. I was like, nope.
I
Uh,
honestly thought that, like, in the 3 years later, she wasn't even going to be with Carter anymore. Like, but I kept reading, even though she was obviously still with Carter. And I get that it makes a good story, but it is so. I really, really hope that Patricia gets, like, validation, because it is so hard to read this story and, like, see her isolated and, like, not believed and just demeaned throughout this entire section. Like, I couldn't take it.
right. Well, I think actually because we're going into our new section, I think that's a good time to take a break real quick, and then we'll redo our Zoom.
Okay,
And
perfect.
so we'll be right back in like 1 minute. So just hang tight and we'll start this all over. We'll start the next section. My gosh, the next section, clear and present danger, 3 years later.
Mhm.
See you soon.
Yes. All right. Thanks for sticking out for the little break that we had to take there. But
An
we're
intermission, a brief
it'll,
intermission.
yep, little brief intermission. Um, and so, but we're gonna get just right into it with the clear and present danger section, which we of course didn't finish off in this little section that we did. But it definitely ended on a very, very crazy note. So I can't wait to see where this adventures to. So we start just in a normal scene, basically with Carter and Patricia in a car, and I saw the comment of the Rush Limbaugh comment that she made about how she was thankful that the radio wasn't on for it, so she didn't have to listen to Rush Limbaugh, and I was like, me too.
Good girl. Good girl. We love you.
And so we get this, like, nothing's bluntly said in the beginning. So they're going to book club. So we're already like, why is Carter coming to book club? And then we're like, why is there no parking at book club? I'm like, what does that mean?
Mhm.
And so, we get this
Mhm.
ominous little change just with everything 3 years later already. And
Well, and
so,
just the way that Carter talks to Patty is just sickening and ominous. Like, though it's just, I feel like he's even more patronizing, and he's like, you can still remodel the kitchen if you want. And it's like, stop being such a jerk just because you made money, and like, ugh.
yes.
So, like,
And so,
already from that interaction with them, you can tell that, based on the fact that he's going to book club, based on the fact, like, that there's no parking at book club, and Patty's all like, oh, I don't like Patty doesn't like the way that when he drives like this, and like, yeah, she shouldn't, because it's reckless and it's not like a safe way to drive. And it's just like it just sets the scene for you to be really frustrated and really angry.
Right. And so we get also just the generic, like everyone's upgraded. Like they've talked about houses, they're talking about cars. And so you know now that like they made money. So clearly something must have worked out with their investment in Gracious K, which I
Mm-hmm.
think from just reading the or just reading about Miss Mary and her warning, you were like, oh, I'm surprised they're so well off 3 years later, but I guess
Mhm.
things take
What do you
time.
mean, Miss Mary's warning?
So
'Cause
remember, Miss Mary said that the Nightwalker or James,
about James. Okay.
Hoyt Pickens came into town and made them all a bunch of money and then disappeared.
Right.
Yep.
And so that might be foreshadowing. I thought it
I
was
didn't
like,
even actually
Yep.
put that together.
oh,
Like, I remember her giving that warning and like talking about that,
yeah.
but like I didn't even put it together that he's just doing the same thing again.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, potentially. So I'm surprised they were still making money the way they were. I thought it was
Right.
going to be some weird little crash or storyline, but so they're
There's
making
definitely
money.
still time.
There's definitely still time.
Yeah, really.
Um, so I put a little comment in there. I'm like, clearly, you know, she chose her family over herself for those past 3 years. Like she made sure to keep her like family together, essentially.
Which
Uh,
I don't blame her for choosing her family.
no,
I
definitely not.
But it's clear in these first two chapters of this section that she's not even allowed to parent her children the way that she wants to or take care of her family the way that she wants to because of how Carter just like exerts his control and power over everyone and doesn't even leave room for Patty to like have a space in the family.
Yes. um, I did. The one thing that I did catch when they were talking about all of the money that they were making was they were talking about credit lines and that they were basically just taking out more and more and kind of like betting on themselves. And I was like, well, if there's going to be a problem,
Mhm.
there's where it would be.
Yeah,
And
that was a super red flag.
yeah, it definitely was. And so, you know, we get it basically, you know, we get the new scene for book club now. So it's extravagant. There's many people. There's too many people, honestly.
Mhm.
And James Harris has basically like shoved his way in and taken over that even. And
Mm-hmm.
now they're reading more. I reading more.
Mhm.
I don't war novels.
They're they're
War.
reading books that aren't even interesting or relevant to them. It sounds like they're not reading anything that they actually like or want to read anymore because
Right.
of course here's James Harris coming in again and infiltrated every part of their lives.
Right. Yeah. So he's just completely taken over that. She has a little flashback moment from a smell that brought her back to the um, time in the hospital. And that's where it's revealed that, you know, the only person that came to visit her while she was in the hospital was Slick. And that's
Yeah.
basically the only relationship that she's even relatively wanted to maintain because of that.
Right.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that absolutely sucks. Just with the whole book club kind of, well, dissipating, the OG book club.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it actually ends with this quote, but I definitely put it in there at the end of my notes, where she, you know, of course she has all the thoughts in the back of her mind, or you know, things that she saw or whatever with James Harris, and she's just like, it was better not to think of it. I go, oh, Patricia, I know.
Yeah.
So it sets the scene of, like, at this point I can't even, like, our main group of book club, like, moms basically. Like, they're just completely different now. I don't even
Mhm.
recognize them from
No,
where we started.
no.
Yep.
And
And
it's
it's like
kind
they're all being held in these vice grips by their husbands who were just like
right.
they had this little bit of freedom back when they did the book club, when they all discovered James Harris was up to nefarious things. And now all of a sudden the husbands are like, nope, too much freedom. Like, you all are back under our control. Like, you can't do anything on your own.
Right. Yeah. It's a little, I don't know. I don't know if I've really read a book that, like, that just jumped the characters so quickly into different, like, things you don't even recognize anymore. It's just
Yeah.
kind of, it's like a little unnerving even.
Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. And so the second to last chapter that we read this time around, basically it's just, again, no one's themselves. Her family is kind of falling apart. Like,
And
oh,
Patricia's
Corey,
just like gaslighting herself through all of it.
right. And yeah, Patricia's gaslighting herself through all of it. I'm like, oh, it's not all your fault. And so, Corey and Blue are starting to become teenagers, and that's a whole thing in itself. Um, and of course, um, Blue
And I hate the way
and that
that,
what?
sorry,
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I hate the way that like Slick is obviously one of Patricia's like true friends, and she really enjoys like Slick is the only one she looks forward to seeing now.
Yeah,
Um, and Carter's even like, I don't want you around her. She's a loudmouth, and it's like that's none of your business who I hang out with. I can do what I want.
exactly. And yeah, so then at the end of that, Blue runs away and he cuts the phone cords and everything else so they can't call the police. Which I was like, oh, that's fun. That's smart.
Which it's obvious that like in the same way that Patricia was like acting out, it was like a cry for help basically. So it's obvious that Blue is doing the same thing where he's like struggling, and like it's even in that moment where like Blue or Patricia and Carter go to talk to him, and Patricia just wants to go back into the room and give Blue a hug and like nurture him and care for him, and Carter's like no. Like and Carter just wants to like give his children medication and like because that's going to solve all their problems. So it's just like it's so
Yeah,
frustrating to see Patricia in this position where she has agreed to this ultimatum that Carter basically forced her into in order to just even still see her kids, but then he won't give her any like free will or control over like or even any opportunity to take care of her family. And so it's like it's like living in a nightmare, honestly. I feel like she had to make this horrible decision to or like she had to make this decision to be able to stay with her family and to stay with her kids, but at what cost? Like at the cost of her mental health and her free will and like her ability to trust herself and her instincts. And like yeah, it's ugh.
yeah. Carter at this point is just like, he's putting his job way too much into his family life, and it just, it's easier to take a pill than actually work on things.
Mm-hmm.
And
But he knows
so,
best because he's the doctor.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the very last chapter, which was that was eerie and crazy in itself. So we get the James Harris convo, and well, of course, James Harris. I mean, at the end of that, James Harris calls, and Blue's safe with him, and it's a whole thing, and he stays the night, and whatever. And then I guess the next morning is where we get the last chapter we read, where James Harris calls, and Patricia, against every instinct, plays nice basically, and is like, oh, of course, he's safe with you, and blah blah blah, and she's just pushing all of that instinct, motherly instinct away. because she has to. And then we get this weird uh, hallucination question mark with Miss Mary. I was like, I had to reread where she's
Yeah.
like saw the eyeball through the crack. I go, no, no way. I'm like, what did I just read?
I didn't have time to reread it because I finished it right before we started. But yeah, I was like, damn. I was like, I knew this was gonna come back around. I knew Miss Mary was gonna have like be a catalyst for her somehow.
Right. And so she essentially reveals that Mrs. Green, whose name is Ursula, we find out, she might have the photo. And that's where we end. I was like, oof. I'm like, ugh. I'm like, what is
You always know where to pick how to leave, like where we leave off.
I do. It's pretty good. So just with, the whole summary, where are we going? What's the deal with this photo? Is Mrs. Green going to have the photo, do we think? Or 3 years later now, the photo won't exist?
I think she's gonna have it because obviously James Harris is a vampire. Obviously, he has to be getting blood from somewhere to be thriving as much as he is. So I don't think the crimes against the children in 6 Mile ever ended. And I think that Mrs. Green is probably still going to have the photograph and still have held on to it because she's probably still holding out hope that at some point they're going to figure out what's going on and what's happening to the kid in 6 Mile. And this photo, I don't know how much Mrs. Green is really that into it because she didn't really seem that big of a fan of Patricia when she saw her last at Grace's house, but I definitely think that she's still going to have the photo. And I think Patricia's going to get that from her and that's going to start a whole new like thing where Patricia's going to go after James Harris, but what I would really like to see is her kids come to Patricia. Like I want Blue to come to Patricia and be like, no, I don't like him. I don't trust him. Like I did not have a good time at his house. He forced me into his house, like when he saw me after I ran away. Or like I want Corey to come to her, or I just want her kids to come back to Patricia because I feel like she really needs that. And I also feel like her kids might become her biggest supporters in this because they might back her up and be like, no, he's creepy. We don't like him. He did this weird thing. And the only reason I like am sticking with that and I really think that her kids are going to come around to her is because that book club where all the husbands intruded and made the wives apologize to James Harris, when Corey was eavesdropping, she was like, why is mom crying? And like the way that I read that was like Corey was concerned about her mother. And like, so yeah, I really want her kids to like support her and come back to her because it's so hard to read them. Like, yeah, it's just so hard to read it.
Well, it also makes you wonder if James is going to go after her kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if he does, like, obviously, her kids are also a witness if she saves them or something.
Well, they're all like all the book club is what's the word? They're all like going through this hazy period, right? They've all been kind of brainwashed by their husbands. They're drinking the Kool-Aid, right? They're like their husbands are forcing it down their throat. Like there's nothing wrong with James Harrison. He's making us, money and just be a good little wife and don't worry about anything. Just mind your own business and don't expose anything about James Harris because he's our business buddy and we don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just gross.
Yep.
Yeah, clearly next we're gonna go see if Mrs. Green has the photo.
Hmm.
I just like I feel like a like the way he writes, I feel like she's gonna have it. It's gonna be a
Mm-hmm.
big twist and turn. The problem is I don't know where he's gonna go from there because now everyone's kind of been doing their own thing now for 3 years, and of course they're not
Hmm.
gonna want to repeat, what
Right.
just happened or what happened again. And
Right. Exactly.
I don't know what the driving force of her getting everyone back together would be. So I'm gonna find it interesting to see what that would be if that's what happens.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know if she even would get everyone back together.
Right.
Right. Especially after what she learned about Grace, it doesn't, it just seems like, we find out these deep, dark secrets about our friends, and now you don't know how to deal with them when you see them, in public.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And then I guess we'll just end it off on would you, if you were Patricia, what would you do? Would you do what her little storyline was, or would you differ in some way, or what do you guys think?
I think I'd like to think I'd stand up for these kids, no matter if they were mine or not. But I think a lot of times we all want to take the easy way out. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to, be um, problems to our husbands or our families or that sort of thing. We just want everything to be smooth sailing. So I think I'd like to say I'd stand up and stick to my guns, so to speak, and say, there is something up with James Harris. We should really figure this out. But unfortunately, now he's got his hooks in everybody, right? It
And money's
comes down
involved.
to the money, right? And now that's going to be the problem, because now Patricia has to worry that she's going to sink all her friends financially, right?
Right.
And themselves.
And themselves, right?
Like it's even higher stakes than it was 3 years ago.
Right.
Exactly.
And based on everything she's already been through, like, I mean, I feel like everybody else in the book forgot about her being attacked.
Right. Right.
Like, what the heck? So it's like,
Yeah.
I feel like there's already so much on her shoulders, and like she's already been through so much where it's like, she just like her instinct is like, this is not good, this man is not good, and like now she's getting these signs from Miss Mary's ghost or whatever it is, and so it's like that's a heavy burden to carry.
Yes.
Right. So how about you? So
I don't know, I like, in the same way, I'd like to think that I would like take action, but I'm also like, I'm not a fight or flight person. Like I'm a freeze person. Like I just freeze. So like if there's conflict or like if something happens, like I just shut down. So I'd like to think that I would be the person that would like go after him again or like figure it all out or like super sleuth it together. But like that's hard. And like if I'd been through everything Patricia had been through, it'd be like, okay, well, I'm not gonna do anything. Like I not like I feel like once I would have like concrete proof that he was trying to hurt like Blue or Corey or like trying to hurt my kids, then I'd be like, absolutely not. We are done. Like I don't care what I lose and I don't care what anyone else's lose. Like anyone else loses, like you're coming after my children. So
Yeah.
I think that would like, yeah, I think that would probably like prompt me into action if I was Patricia. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah, I mean, of course, I don't have any experience with having children, so I'm gonna give it the perspective of Patricia dealing with Carter and then the kids and like trying to figure out which one to pick, essentially.
Mhm.
Because of
Yeah.
course, like she would have such a tough time to even manage custody if she left Carter, and she doesn't have a job, and it's a whole thing. So like, I guess taking all that in, I'm like, okay, but I think I would have to to even maintain sanity living with that person ever again after all that crap. I
Mm.
I would have to have some like end game or end goal or like something to just get a one up on him. Like my whole point of living with that person would be just revenge.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for that. I'm never gonna forgive him to come back around.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah. But no, this was very well written from multiple
yeah.
angles of just, the spookiness of this book itself and then just
Mhm.
real life stuff. Like my goodness.
Yeah, I've been really enjoying reading this book. It's a really
Yeah.
good one.
It definitely is. Well, so we've been a little chaotic with this book, but
Mhm.
we're only 2 weeks away from being done.
Woo!
Wow, it's hard to believe.
I know. So we will have to end up picking a new book soon, which is exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I did not realize. But that's okay. So for next week, we're gonna basically finish off the clear and present danger section, and then we'll read one chapter into the next section, which is called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus.
Okay.
So we're gonna read up until I just had it. Where did it go? So we're going to read up until chapter 35. So read chapter 34, not chapter 35. In my hardcover book, it's page, the chapter 34 ends on page 335.
Okay.
And then that basically splits it like kind of half and half for the rest, like the last two sections almost perfectly.
Okay.
So that'll be a good way to end this off. And
Sweet.
yeah.
Are we going to start voting for a new book?
Yeah, so we will start working on that this week. If
Okay.
we need to take like a little bye week in between books, that probably will end up being good. Actually, now that I think about it, it almost works out perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think Thanksgiving will start right where our bye week will be.
Mhm.
So that actually works out perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we do have Thanksgiving. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that works. Fantastic.
Sweet. Gotta love it when the holidays come around at the perfect time.
I know, right?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you
Okay.
to everyone who's joined us on this stream and joining us later on our YouTube. As usual, I'd like to thank Book Club Mom for showing up
Thank you.
and illustrations, of course. We miss Decal, and hopefully she'll be here next week. You can find Book Club Mom, Decal, and I on our Discord. That's where we'll find us. We actually have a new random person we don't know on our Discord, so that's exciting.
Sweet.
Welcome.
And then Heart Illustrations, where can they find you?
Instagram. I have my Instagram account for my artwork. It's Heart Illustrations 7. So if you want to check it out, feel free to.
Yes, she's a phenomenal artist. Definitely worth checking out. And of course, I'd like to thank our IT god, I roll, Botsy, who helps with all the editing and stuff I don't want to do. So that's fantastic. He consistently streams now on Fridays, and that's usually actually with me, so that's always fun. Right now I think we're stuck in our like Phasmophobia, even though it's after Halloween, but yeah, so we will see you all next week. Thank you again for
Happy reading.
thank you again for joining us, and yes, happy reading.